And welcome once again. We are here on Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Dr. Francis Karanu from Lacarda LLC, and that's in Kansas City. Doctor, it's a pleasure having you on board today. And I think there's quite a bit that we have to discuss. And my first question go out to you. I know that you were first a vet, and then you had transformed into a medical researcher here at Lacarda LLC. Could you tell us what that transformation was what it was like?
Thank you so much, Harold, and thank you for inviting me to be here with you this morning. It's a real pleasure to talk to you today. So I've had a career that kind of has transformed over the years. So I can start a little bit about my first degree. When I was in Kenya. I was trained as a DVM, that's a Doctor of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Nairobi. And then I always had a passion to do medical research. So what I did after that is I came to the United States and went to school at Washington State University, where I completed a master's and a PhD program in immunology and cell biology. That really transformed me into a medical researcher. So what I've been doing in the last 15, close to 20 years is actually medical research and more so focused on regenerative medicine. That's in looking for cures for cancer and other degenerative conditions like diabetes. What I've been doing is using stem cells as a therapy to create new cures for these diseases. So I have transformed from being a medical or a DVM into a medical researcher focusing on human diseases. But most of these also diseases affect animals and pets. For example, diabetes is a big condition in pets. So what we are doing at Lacarda is creating cures for humans and pets as well. Our first goal is to create a cure for dog diabetes. That's what we are focused on at the moment. But our technology is also applicable to human diabetes. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Well, beautiful. You know, in the past, I had a doctor on my show. She had developed this solution for cancer patients who grew boils on their tongue, that they could absorb this substance. It would carry away the boils, and it has some little nutritional value also to the body. But what really got me just now and what you said is human stem cell research. And I just want to actually brief narrowly on that, because I recognize over the years they had an ethical and moral issue with stem cell research. And that was to where you fuse sperm and egg, you know, and you allowed it to grow for a period of time, and then you remove the cells, obviously, from the fusion of that fetus or whatever you want to call it, to utilize for further experiment in to deal with human issues that are already alive, so to speak. Do you see at any point where ethically speaking, that it had crossed any moral issues when it comes to stem cell?
That's a really important question. And it's a very fundamental question. It goes to the core of what we do. So stem cells are different categories. So there's what we call adult stem cells, whereby people use that every day to cure, for example, myelomas and leukemias, so people can get a bone marrow transplant. That has no ethical issues. That's adult stem cells. Then there's what we call the pluripotent stem cells. Now, the beauty of using pluripotent stem cells is that they are more primitive and they can make more tissues than what we call more mature stem cells. So initially, when these cells came around, they were derived from what were called in vitro research. Those were actually fertilized embryos that were grown in the lab, and then for a few days, and then cells would be derived from that. So it was never really an embryo, but the word embryonic research or embryonic stem cell research was a misnomer, which created a lot of passion in many communities. Now, the science has even moved beyond that. Now, we have what we call cells that are induced pluripotent stem cells that are actually derived from adult stem cells. So you can take a tissue from your body and create very primitive stem cells for yourself that you can use for cures. So this has really moved us from that issue of ethical concerns regarding use of stem cells. And it has made really a lot of companies and people be more comfortable in using these more primitive stem cells. Yeah, so it has a lot of passion. It's an issue that has a lot of passion. And there's also a lot of not understanding of exactly what it is. And using the term embryonic actually created a lot of passion and misinformation. So I would say that the field now has moved forward, and very few people, if at all, are using any embryonic stem cells, but rather moving to these other more or less ethically concerning stem cells.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because the average day person like myself, who don't know what's going on in the medical field, wouldn't even imagine that you can actually use your own cells today to grow, to do other things with. I don't know if it's the laboratory way of promoting themselves, or if it's something that should be an educational program, whether it's imparted in the schools or wherever. I think that this whole concept over the years with the embryonic stage of stem cell research, which would have caused a whole set of religious problems, and people just couldn't fathom what's going on. But to hear you telling me now that you can utilize your own cells to grow, to do things, I mean, that's advancement. That's advancement. But in terms of medical research, because it's a word that used regularly every day, and when people look at medical research, they just probably fathom or think, well, you know what, that's something someone just studying, medical research. But they don't understand that medical research is a very general subject. It has so much different paths, so many different things to study, whether you're studying for cancer or diabetes or HIV or even COVID-19. There's so much areas, I believe, that medical research would actually involve.
It is a very broad field, actually. And when you say medical research, most people are used to going to the pharmacy and collecting some pills that they swallow at home. And, that's the kind of traditional medicine. But there's so many other different fields, like just what I talked about. For example, with the stem cells, this is a fairly thriving field at the moment. A lot of work is going on here. And the idea is that, say for diabetic patients, they can actually get their own cells that they can create from their own cells. They create these induced pluripotent stem cells and then use them to create cures for their condition. So that's what is happening, and that's really where the field is moving. But you've talked about COVID. COVID has also brought in another angle to it. You can remember, or the story with the vaccines, with this new generation of vaccines, which were created within a matter of months. Again, that's now advancement in the medical field. So there's so many things that are happening in the medical space.
Great. There are Lacardo LLC there in Kansas City. You are a biotechnology research company. And in a nutshell, basically, tell us what are some of the things that you are there studying for the benefit of humanity, so to speak.
Correct. So, like I mentioned earlier, we are a biotechnology company. So we are kind of have a broad span of interests. One of them is the cell therapies. I talked about cure for diabetes, using stem cells to create a cure for diabetes. At the moment, we are focused on a cure for dogs that can be applied to humans. And, whenever you do transplants, whether it is a kidney transplant or an organ transplant, one of the biggest challenges is immune rejection of those organs in the body. So Lacardo has developed a method to actually protect these cells when they are ready to be transplanted. We call our technology the CSS technology. And what we do is we microencapsulate our cells into a gel that is friendly to the body. So your immune system is sort of cheated, and it does not reject those cells. So that's what Lacada is doing. It's actually on the forefront of advancing this micro technology that can be used for delivering tissues, either for diabetes or for other conditions, including osteoarthritis, whether it's for humans or pets. That's one area that we are working on. The other area that Lacada is working on is a contract development. So people come to us with their own problems, and we are able to develop assays for them and test things for them and actually give them solutions to any problems they are having, especially many cell companies or cell therapy companies are having challenges with delivering their cells. So Lacada is actually helping these companies develop ways to encapsulate these cells and then be able to deliver them to the host or to the recipient.
Okay. One other thing pertaining to all this. Now, I know how normal businesses function and work. I see how they would have made their profits, even hospitals and labs. But in terms of medical research, unless you find an accurate solution to solve a problem or develop an actual product to solve a problem, how do that lab really focus in on making its revenue every year to pay the scientists with and so forth? I mean, that may be out of your scope. I don't know. That's more administrative question. So I don't know. But do you have any ideas?
Yeah. And there's several ways. There is so many, and the biotechnology space is booming right now with many different companies. So the biggest source of money or funds to carry out this research is usually investors who are interested in developing cures for particular conditions. So, for example, Lacada and other biotechnology companies will have private investors who put down their money to develop a cure for one condition or the other. So that's one way that most of the money is generated. Other means include grants. There may be federal government grants that are available to be applied for. There are grants that can be applied for small businesses through the NIH and other organizations. And then there is also what I would call the non-governmental and non-profit research sponsors. For example, what comes to mind is what is called the JDRIF, or the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. They raise money from the public, and then they can use this money to fund particular programs that they are interested in. So there's a variety of ways that money comes for research, to do both the research and also to pay for the work, to pay the scientists.
Mm-hmm. Since you just end on the note of COVID, I would love to ask you this question as a doctor still, because here's the reality. We have a lot of those who are walking along with this conspiracy theory that the vaccine is not good. And by rights, we see like almost half the nation still ain't taking these vaccines. The country which I come from, the Prime Minister have problems and issues with people taking vaccines. What advice would you want to give, whether you're a doctor of medical research or whatever the case may be, what advice would you want to give the public at large? The importance of taking a vaccine, since so many people die, over 600,000 die, without a vaccine, opposed to who would have died with a vaccine. What kind of advice would you want to give the public?
Yeah, that's a really very important question. I think the statistics and the data is out there, especially with the COVID-19. We have seen that when there were no vaccines, even in this country, we lost a lot of people. And that kind of dramatically changed when the vaccine came on the scene. It's very unfortunate that there continues to be a lot of misinformation and disinformation about vaccines. But the Delta variant strain and what is happening with that in this country and around the globe is very illustrative, where we see that the Delta variant has become a disease of the unvaccinated. If you look at the statistics and data, most of the people that are dying are people that are not vaccinated. So really, you look at the data, look at the statistics, and convince yourself that there's value to taking the vaccine. And in other diseases too, vaccines have been around for a very, very long time. And a lot of people have taken vaccines as children. But I don't know where this misinformation or disinformation started, that we have people now not trusting the vaccines, which is really unfortunate. But people just have to look at what is happening out there and look at the data, and they'll be convinced that there's value to taking these vaccines to protecting themselves and their families and their young children, especially who cannot be vaccinated.
Yes. And why would have asked that also is because I heard there are those who carrying this concept because the virus is now mutated into a different strand, that even though you had the vaccine, it doesn't exempt you from catching the Delta virus that everyone is talking about. No, that the vaccine has no impact on that. It's something totally different. Is there any word of restoration mentally that you would want to say to those people who believe that because the vaccine can't work for the Delta variant, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be vaccinated? A vaccine is better, I believe, than nothing at all. Along that line, what would you have to say?
Absolutely. So a vaccine, and when the vaccines that are in the market were created, the Delta variant was not there. And the word variant simply means that this virus has mutated. It has changed some parts of its pathogenicity or its gene structure. So it may not be arrested at the same rate as the original variants for the vaccine, but still it protects people. I think if you look at the statistics, the people that are having breakthrough infections, even if they are vaccinated, is a very, very small percentage. Compare that to the people that are not vaccinated. So to your point, it is much, much better to be protected because we still have the old variants around. It's only that the Delta variant is actually it's more pathogenic, it's highly transmissible. So it's kind of overtaking the other variants that we knew that were killing people in their thousands. So even if you are not 100% protected against Delta, you still have those other variants to worry about. So it's still much better to get the vaccine and be protected and rather than not to be protected at all.
Absolutely, 100%. One of the things I want to look about now, I know that you are a doctor and so forth, but there's then that other side of you that looks out for the development and prosperity of humanity. And for example, you would have come from Kenya, and there are those communities which you are fully aware of that needs assistance and need help, and you are doing your best in trying to acquire that assistance, that they can get some help, that they can move from one level to the next. Would you want to elaborate a little on that?
Absolutely, it's a pressure too, actually. So one of my interests is a person from Kenya is that I grew up in a rural community, and in a developing countries, when you live here in the US and other Western nations, there's a lot of things that we take for granted that are not available in those developing nations. So one of the things I grew up seeing was a lack of medical facilities, lack of education opportunities for our children. So it's been at the bottom of my heart to assist in any way, in any form that I can. So I've done some projects in the past and continue to do my part to try and bring forward this to the fore. So some of the things I've done is looking at medical supplies, medical opportunities, and providing medical supplies, working with some great philanthropic organizations here in the US. I would like to mention in particular the Direct Relief International and the Project UA, who have really partnered with me in the past, try and get medical supplies to rural populations or rural communities in Kenya. It's a very long and laborious process, but when those items are received there, you should just see the people that receive them. They are very, very grateful. So I continue to do that. At the moment, we have a project. We are trying to raise some funds to ship some hospital beds to Kenya that are really in need too. There are so many hospitals and so many inpatient hospitals that do not have basic structures. So we are trying to raise funds, take this money, take these beds back to Kenya. So that's one thing that we do on the medical front. The other thing we do is try to support educational issues, working with other people, like-minded people, going back to the roots. For example, I grew up in a place called Marira in Murang'a County of Kenya. So we try to go back and provide support to the, what we call them primary schools there, but they are really elementary schools, by providing assistance, prize giving days, arranging prize giving days, giving motivational speeches and giving prize giving to those students, because once you motivate them and you encourage them, then they do better, and that's overall better for the whole society and community.
Yes. I was speaking with Nellie, co-founder of the Chemo Wellness Foundation from back there, which you fully aware of. And one of the things she had told me is that you find young people now becoming more suicidal than before. I don't know if it has anything to do with modern society and not being able to have access to things that 21st century people or developed society would need to live and prosper with. That is one thing she would have expressed to me, and she need guidance in that. She also would have expressed to the fact that the standards of living in terms of healthcare and her community, the Mathuru community, the standards of healthcare in education and clothing and food is at a point where assistance is more than needed. It is just needed. Intelligent people, brilliant people, but lacking the resources and nourishment of life to take them to that next level. And that's one of the things I want to discuss with you, well, not here on air, but otherwise, because I believe that when it all boils down, there are a lot of companies out there that are involved in philanthropy, but sometimes reaching out to them is more difficult than I don't know what. And it's complicated to get them even finance you if your grant isn't appealing in one way or the other. Now, the reality is it's a need. It's a humanitarian need, but it has to be put over in a certain way that they can feel it, that these people really deserve the money. No, they do deserve the money. They want the funding to get things go. Coming from a doctor, would there be any word generally you would like to speak to any organization who are in a position to assist with other organizations in Africa or communities, investing in them as a philanthropist? Is there any word you would like to say to those organizations?
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of young people that and most of our populations, probably maybe 60-70% of our people are young people in the developing countries, including Kenya. So if you look at the Modelo community, you see there's a lot of young people there who don't have resources. They don't have a way of earning a living. So this kind of gets to them, and then people start taking to drugs and other vices. Yes. So any support that any philanthropic organizations are willing to do. Obviously, I know there's a lot of competition for resources the world over. But there is also a case to be made as long as you have people that are able to be accountable for these resources, doing the due diligence to make sure that your resources are needed and they are going to be used for the purposes that you're saying that they're going to be used for. And really working with the teams. What I found works very well is working with even church-based organizations. There's probably a lot of integrity that happens when you work with the church-based organizations in making sure that these resources end up where they are intended and they can be used for the purposes that they are intended to be used. Yes, so my appeal would be for any philanthropic organizations there that are out there on their approach. Despite all the challenges, there are people even here in the US. I have a lot of companions and colleagues here in the US who would help to make those kind of dreams a reality by, working for and vouching and even assisting in the implementation of any of those kinds of projects. So there is a lot of opportunities, and this would make a big difference to these young people, young men and women in those communities, if they were able to get the guidance and support, and even start like small businesses for themselves, or even get trained for small. They can take on their small careers, whatever skills they want to be trained for. So yes, there's a case to be made, and would be willing to talk to anybody that is willing to partner with us to do this kind of projects.
Thank you. Well, Doctor, we have come that 28 minutes, 30 minutes went on pretty quickly. We have come to the end of our program, but definitely we will be keeping in touch. Take good care of yourself. And until all those who have been tuning in or living in the 21st century, have a blessed day and bye-bye.